Venture capital thrives on high risk, high reward opportunities, but one of the biggest risks startups face isn't competition or market demand. It's legal and regulatory compliance. Navigating the complexities of laws, regulations, and industry standards can be the difference between a company scaling successfully and being shut down overnight. Regulatory challenges vary by industry and geography, making compliance a moving target for startups expanding into new markets. While some industries operate with relatively few legal restrictions, others, like fintech, healthcare, and AI, are heavily regulated, requiring startups to navigate licensing, consumer protection laws, and evolving government policies. Let's break down the most critical legal and regulatory risks startups face and how venture capital investors help mitigate them. For venture capitalists, understanding the regulatory landscape around data privacy is critical when evaluating potential investments. In today's digital economy, data is a key asset, but improper handling can result in massive fines, legal battles, and irreparable reputational damage. Global privacy regulations such as GDPR in Europe, CCPA in California, and China's PPL impose stringent requirements on how companies collect, store, and utilize customer data. Startups operating in data-driven sectors like social media, SaaS, and AI face heightened regulatory scrutiny. Failure to implement robust data protection measures can lead to multi-million-dollar fines, as seen with tech giants like Facebook and Google, which have collectively paid billions for privacy violations. For VCs, this underscores the importance of assessing a startup's compliance readiness early. Companies must prioritize data security, establish clear user consent mechanisms, and develop policies that align with evolving global regulations, particularly if they operate across multiple jurisdictions. Investors should factor regulatory risk into due diligence, ensuring that a portfolio company's approach to data privacy doesn't become a liability down the road. For venture capitalists, fintech and cryptocurrency represent both immense opportunity and significant regulatory risk. Financial services is one of the most tightly controlled industries, and startups operating in payments, lending, digital banking, or blockchain must navigate complex compliance requirements, including anti-money laundering, or AML, and know your customer, or KYC, laws. Established fintech giants like Stripe, PayPal, and Revolut had to secure multiple financial licenses to operate legally across various jurisdictions, illustrating the regulatory hurdles startups must overcome. In the crypto space, uncertainty is even greater as governments worldwide continue to refine their stance on digital assets. Companies like Binance and Coinbase have faced ongoing legal challenges, highlighting the difficulty of balancing rapid innovation with compliance in an evolving regulatory landscape. For VCs, this means assessing regulatory preparedness is essential during due diligence. Portfolio companies in fintech and crypto must engage proactively with regulators, secure the appropriate licenses, and build compliance frameworks that can adapt to shifting laws. Without a clear regulatory strategy, even the most promising startups risk operational restrictions, legal battles, or forced shutdowns, turning what might seem like a high-growth opportunity into a liability. For venture capitalists, investing in healthcare and biotech means navigating a landscape where regulatory approval can make or break a company. Startups developing biotech solutions, medical devices, digital health platforms, or pharmaceuticals must undergo extensive testing and compliance reviews before they can introduce their products to the market. Unlike software startups that can iterate rapidly, healthcare innovations often face years of regulatory scrutiny before generating revenue. In the US, the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, plays a central role in approving new medical technologies, while the European Medicines Agency, the EMA, sets regulatory standards across Europe. A failure to secure these approvals can lead to significant delays or even derail a company entirely. The cautionary tale of Theranos, a biotech startup that collapsed due to fraudulent claims and an inability to meet medical standards, underscores the importance of rigorous regulatory compliance. For VCs, due diligence in this sector extends beyond evaluating a startup's technology. It requires assessing whether the company has a clear path to regulatory approval. Portfolio companies must demonstrate a well-structured clinical trial strategy, adherence to medical safety laws, and a deep understanding of compliance requirements. Without these safeguards, even the most groundbreaking healthcare innovations risk stagnation, legal challenges, or outright failure. For venture capitalists investing in companies that rely on flexible or gig-based workforces, understanding labor regulations is critical. The classification of workers as independent contractors versus employees has been a legal battleground for companies like Uber, DoorDash, and Deliveroo, with courts and regulators across different jurisdictions ruling in conflicting ways. In some regions, startups have been forced to reclassify workers as employees, dramatically increasing their costs due to mandated benefits, wages, and protections. Uber, for example, has faced repeated legal challenges worldwide over whether its drivers should be classified as employees with full labor rights or independent contractors with greater flexibility but fewer protections. These legal battles have led to policy shifts, multi-million-dollar fines, and even forced changes to business models in certain markets. For VCs, investing in gig economy startups requires careful assessment of labor laws across different regions and a deep understanding of how potential regulatory shifts could impact operating costs, scalability, and long-term sustainability. Companies with exposure to this risk must develop contingency plans, ensuring they can adapt their workforce models or pricing strategies if labor laws evolve in ways that threaten their core business. For venture capitalists investing in AI-driven companies, regulatory and ethical considerations are becoming increasingly critical. AI is advancing at a pace that far outstrips government oversight, creating legal uncertainty and public scrutiny. Companies developing AI-powered products must address issues such as algorithmic bias, misinformation, and liability risks, factors that can lead to regulatory crackdowns and reputational damage. Governments worldwide are beginning to introduce AI-specific laws, with the EU AI Act serving as a prominent example. This framework categorizes AI applications by risk level, imposing stricter compliance requirements on technologies like facial recognition, automated decision-making, and generative AI. Startups operating in these areas must meet stringent transparency, fairness, and accountability standards, or risk regulatory penalties and operational restrictions. Cases of AI bias in hiring algorithms, predictive policing, and financial decision-making have already drawn significant backlash, leading to increased scrutiny from both regulators and the public. If AI companies fail to self-regulate and implement responsible AI practices, they could face intervention that stifles their growth or forces costly operational changes. For VCs, the key takeaway is clear. AI portfolio companies must proactively adopt ethical AI principles, implement transparency measures, and closely monitor regulatory developments. Firms that prioritize responsible AI governance will be better positioned to scale while avoiding compliance risks and public distrust. For venture capitalists backing startups with global ambitions, regulatory complexity across international markets is a key consideration. While expanding into new regions offers significant growth opportunities, each country imposes unique legal, financial, and operational requirements. Failure to navigate these effectively can result in heavy fines, service bans, or even forced market exits. Major tech companies like Facebook, Google, and TikTok have encountered regulatory challenges in countries such as China and India, where government restrictions have led to modified operations or outright shutdowns. Similarly, payment platforms must comply with varying financial regulations across jurisdictions, while e-commerce startups must navigate differing tax structures, consumer protection laws, and data privacy rules in each market they enter. For VCs, international expansion requires a proactive regulatory strategy. Portfolio companies must conduct thorough due diligence on local compliance requirements, establish legal frameworks tailored to each market, and remain agile in responding to evolving regulations. Companies that prioritize regulatory preparedness will be better positioned for sustainable global growth, reducing the risk of costly legal obstacles and operational setbacks. Venture capitalists contribute far more than just funding to the startups they support. One of the most important areas where they add value is in helping founders manage legal and regulatory risks, which can have a significant impact on a company's trajectory. To begin with, venture capitalists often connect startups with top-tier legal experts. These professionals help ensure that the company is fully compliant with relevant laws and regulations, particularly as it begins to grow and operate in new markets. Having access to trusted legal counsel from the outset can prevent costly mistakes later on. In addition, investors advise startups on market expansion strategies with an eye toward navigating different regulatory environments around the world. Entering a new country or industry often involves complex legal hurdles, and guidance from experienced investors can make this process far more manageable. Venture capitalists also play a role in helping startups secure regulatory approvals, especially in highly regulated sectors such as healthcare and financial technology. These approvals can be time-consuming and difficult to obtain, so having knowledgeable support can be a key advantage. Beyond external compliance, investors encourage strong internal governance. They help ensure that best practices are in place to prevent compliance failures, protect the company's reputation, and avoid potential legal consequences. Ultimately, investors recognize that legal risks can make or break a startup. This is why they consistently urge companies to take a proactive approach to compliance, addressing potential issues long before they escalate into crises. For venture capitalists, regulatory risk is one of the most significant factors that can determine a portfolio company's success or failure. In industries where laws evolve rapidly, startups that overlook compliance may experience rapid initial growth only to face severe consequences later, whether through privacy violations, labor disputes, financial penalties, or government-imposed restrictions. However, regulatory complexity isn't just a hurdle, it can be a competitive advantage. Startups that proactively address compliance gain credibility, build trust with regulators, and establish a foundation for long-term, scalable growth. Investors who prioritize regulatory diligence can mitigate risk, protect their capital, and position their portfolio companies for sustainable success. The takeaway for VCs is clear: innovation thrives when paired with strategic compliance. Supporting founders in navigating regulatory challenges isn't just about avoiding pitfalls, it's about strengthening market position and ensuring that high-growth companies can scale responsibly and withstand legal scrutiny.